Hello and welcome to my channel. In this tutorial, we are going to learn a much simpler way to connect our VB project to a database. So for the sake of this tutorial, I'll be using XAMPP for the database functionalities. So if you have, for instance, WAMP, MAMP, or even SQL Server running on your machine, that is okay for this tutorial as well, because the approach that we are going to look at is practically the same across board. Okay, all right, so let me just minimize it so that we get to know what exactly we are supposed to do. So I have already launched my Visual Studio IDE. I'm using the version 2019, so my interface is a bit different. So depending on your version, you might be seeing something different. So here I'm just going to create a new project, and then I'll search for Visual Basic here, and then the list of options that are available, I'll make sure that I'll look for Windows Forms app, okay, into bracket.NET framework, and then beneath it you can see Visual Basic indicated down there. Right, that's what we're interested in, so I'll just hit on next, and then for the project name, let me say database connection. All right, now the project location should just be the default. The solution name as well should just be as it is, because it assumes the name you've given to the project. Now with this one here, I'll just make sure that I select the highest framework version here, and I will just say create. Okay, so let's just wait a little for our project to finish creating so we can continue. Okay, now we have our project created successfully. Right, now with this form, we're just going to place few controls on this to be able to test our connectivity. So let me just resize this form a little, and then before then let me change some few properties pertaining to this form. The start position of this form should be the center of the screen, so that whenever this form loads, it will be at the center of the screen. Okay, now the form border style too, let me set it to none. Okay, and as well the font size for this form should be 14. So what it will do is that whenever I place any control on this form, it assumes the font size 14. Okay, so if it is a button, the font size for that particular button will be 14. If it is a label, likewise. Okay, so I have increased the font size, which has distorted the design somehow, so let me readjust it. Okay, so I think I'm kind of okay with this. Now let me place some few controls. I need a label. Alright, so I'll just double click. Well, can do drag and drop, and that will be okay. I need a button as well, so button, I'll just drag and then drop it on the form, and then I'll resize this to what I want. And the text label, the text property of the label, let me just change it to database connection. I think I'm missing the spelling, so this is it. Okay, now let me increase this font size to you see it is 14, but let me just increase it to perhaps 18. Okay, now this is okay. Now the text property of this button too, let me just set it to connect, and then I want the back color should to be something bluish. Okay, the flat style should be flat, and then the back color also, I want it to be something bluish. Okay, then the fore color for this particular button, I think, should be white. Okay, so let me say white. Can I see white in there? Yes, good. So I'm okay with this, right? Good. Now let me duplicate this label once and then just paste it on the form, and then change the text property of this label to X, and that's will be like that. And I'll change the fore color to red. Fore color to red. Can't see red in here. Let me just go to custom and then select red from here. Now let me rename this label to LBL exit, because we will implement the close functionality using this label here. So let me change the cursor property to hand. So whenever you hover over it, the cursor will change to a hand. Okay. Alright, with the button too, let me just say btn, meaning button btn connect. Okay. Alright, so let's just start or debug this application to see what we've done so far. Okay, so this is it. This is what we've done so far. Okay, let me implement the functionality for this close button, and then we continue to look at the rest. So I'm stopping it, and then I'll just double click on this label here, and it will assign a click event to the label, right? A click event here to assign it to the label. So I'll just say that application dot exit. So what this will do is that whenever I click on this particular label here, it will close the entire application, right? Good. Now let's box on to look at how we can create a database connectivity the much simpler way. Okay. All right, so we are going to make use of an item that is available within the VB framework, I mean the .NET framework, that is specific to the VB.NET programming language, which is called a model. So it is called a model. Okay, a model. Now this model behaves like a class. All right, where classes, you can see that a class can be instantiated. All right, so a class can be instantiated, so you can instantiate and can have a lot of functions within it like that, or specifically methods. Okay, so let me say methods. All right, now when it comes to that of the model, it's kind of have similarities with a class, but what it does is that you don't have to instantiate this model. The instance is only one, which is the model name, and the scope of this model is public. The scope of any model you create by default in VB.NET project is public. So it means that anywhere in your application you can access whatever definitions or implementations you have within that particular model. Okay. Alright, so let's go and then look at how we can add one so that we can use it to create our database connections and functionality. So I'll just go to my solution explorer, right click on this project name, and then go to add, and I'll go to add new item. Then I'll search for a model. So right here you can see a model. Alright, so if you can't see yours, just search and then type model. Okay, it will just bring up, I mean, the sorted ones like that. So we select this, and I'll rename this model to maybe database. Okay, then I'll just hit on add here. Okay, now we have what? A model created successfully. Now before we work with the model, let's add a reference of MySQL database to our project. By default, it is not available. So before we be able to write MySQL queries, before we will be able to implement MySQL commands, we need to add the reference to our project. So how do we do that? There is a DLL file that we need to include in our project. Okay. Alright, so I'll just have to go back to the solution explorer once again, and then right click on it, I mean the project name. I'll right click on it and then select add, and I'll go to reference here. Okay, now you can see that I've already worked with this file already, so you can see it's right here in the reference manager section here. But then if you don't have yours here like that, it means that you need to browse to where it is and then add it to the project. Okay, so I'll be including a link that you can download this particular DLL file and then get it on your desktop and then include it in your project. Okay, so I'll just have to select this, and then so let me just say that if you have it, for instance, on your desktop, what you just have to do is that browse, click on the browse here, and then go to desktop and then select it. Okay, so I have mine seated in this directory here. Okay, so you can see it's just here. I'll just have to select it like that, and I'll click on OK. So you see that there are some changes going on here within this reference manager thing. Within this references, should I say a model, or yes, within this references you can see that MySQL library has been included in our project, so we can therefore create SQL command or MySQL command and then queries. Okay, alright, now that we've included it to be part of our references, what we have to do next is that on top of this model, on top of the model, we need to import it so that it will be part of this model. Import mysql.data.mysql client. This is what we are supposed to do so that it becomes part of this model here. All right, now there are some few variables we need to define so that we can be able to establish our connection to the database. Okay, all right, so first of all we need a connection instance of MySQL. So how do we do that? I'll make the scope of this connection to be public, so I'll say that public con as MySQL connection. Okay, now I'll say also that dim status as boolean. All right, and then let me just set it to false by default. Okay, and then I also need a connection string, so dim con string, so meaning connection string, okay, is equal to, then here I would have to specify the connection string to the particular database that we are using. So I'll say server equal to localhost, because the server that we are currently going to run is a localhost. Now the database name should be equal to, let me say, YouTube underscore DB. Then I'll terminate this. Then I'll say the user of this particular database is equal to the root user, and then the password is equal to empty. So since the password is empty, I'll just bring equal to, and then nothing follows like that. Okay, then I'm through with that. Now with this what it means is that, okay, this is our connection string. Whenever we implement this, the system will be able to pass all this information to be able to establish a connection between our application and the database management system that we are having. Okay, all right, now that we have defined these variables, let me just add one more. That's public I as integer. Okay, all right, now let's go and then say that let's test, or let's say establish connection. Okay, so before we do that, we are going to say that public db connect as, so this should be actually a function, so public function db connect as boolean, then I'll just hit enter. Okay, now we are going to say that if the con here, okay, if the con here, the connection here, so if con dot state equal to connection state dot closed, all right, If it is closed, then okay, so I think there's a problem here. Let me just get rid of this parenthesis and see. Okay, good. Now this con state is not okay, so let me just say con dot state. Let me say as new and then see something. So if con dot state. Okay, all right, so we are supposed to say that public con as new MySQL connection. Okay, all right. Now with this, if it is closed, then we can say that con dot connection string, okay, should be equal to this connection string that we define at the top there. All right, so this connection instance, the connection string should be this one right here. Are we okay? Good. All right, now I can proceed that. Now the result or the status should now be equal to true. All right, the status should be true, and then I can finally return the status. So what it means is that it will run from here like that. By default it is false. When it gets here, it has changed to true, so it will return true. So that's practically what is happening. All right, okay, now this is what we've done, right? Let's go and then test this on our form. So when we double click on this form, okay, what we are just going to do is that we're just going to implement a simple if condition. So if db connect, so that's the name of a function that we defined in the module, right? So if db connects, it means that if the result that or the status is returning is true, then we can say that con dot open. Okay, then I can just print a simple message box and say that database connected. Okay, I'll say vb information, else I can say that msg box not connected. Then I'll say vb critical. All right, and then when I come here, whenever you open a connection, you need to close the connection. So the code will execute from the top to the down here, and then I can say that con dot close. All right, now let's test this and see what happens. Okay, so I'm just going to hit on the connect button here and see the message we are going to get. Okay, so we are having a problem. It is saying that authentication to host localhost failed with unknown database. Good. So yes, we need to go and then what, create the database. So I said I'm going to use XAMPP to manage or to implement the database functionality. So I'll launch my browser and then I'll just go to localhost here and I'll say php my admin. Okay, so you should know how to work with XAMPP by now, because I've done tutorials already and then I showed how to actually work with the XAMPP. Okay, so you can check out my other videos and you know how to go about it. So I'll just go to the SQL tab here and then I'll say create database YouTube underscore db. Then I'll just navigate to the down and then hit on go. Okay, now that we finished creating this database, let's go back and test our application. So I'll debug it again and then hit on connect. So we can see a positive message now. It means that we've been able to connect to our database. Now, to make it more interesting, I'm just going to insert only one record, okay? And then let's see what happens. So let me go back to the back end of our database and say that, let me show the query box. Let me get rid of this and say use YouTube underscore db. Then I'll terminate it. I'll say create table. I'll say users underscore tb, users underscore tb, meaning table, right? Now open parenthesis. Now terminate this. Now say that the user is supposed to have an ID, so ID which will be of the type integer, by default 11, shouldn't be now, so not now, should be the primary key, and then auto increment, right? And then let me say that the user will have a username, which will be of the type varchar, a length of 50, not now, and then should be a password, so user password, okay? That one to be a varchar, length of 50, and then not now. Okay, now let's execute this query. I'll just hit on go here. Good, we've created what? A table inside the database. So I'll just expand this database here, and you can see the users table in there. Let's go back to our application. Now before then, let me just expand this table so that you see that there isn't any record. So username and password, you can see there isn't any record, right? So let me minimize it and then say that when we check the status of the connection and it's closed, then we open it, right? Good. So what I can do here is that, let me get rid of these messages and then the else statement. So I can say that using con, so using this connection, I can say that MySQL command, even this one, let me just go and do it inside the module. So yes, so let me say public cmd as new MySQL command. Okay, all right, so let me just go back to this place and then say that cmd equals to new MySQL command. Cmd is equal to new MySQL command. Okay, something is up. Let me just see what is up. Okay, and then let me get rid of this and see something. So new MySQL command. Okay, so we are not getting what we want. Alright, so let me just get rid of it for now, but it should work anyway. So we can say that MySQL okay, so it is actually like so, so let me go back what I did here, let me undo it and then have it like that. Okay, then inside this place I'll say that using MySQL command, wow, so this is not really working. So using con, okay, using con, we can say that dim cmd is equal to new MySQL command. Okay, so what is actually happening is that we need to import MySQL to be part of this class as well. So import mysql.data.mysql client. Okay, now we can say that using con, okay, using this connection, you can say that dim cmd is equal to new mysql command. Good, so you can see that now with this command it takes two parameters, two arguments. Okay, so the first one is the query, which is insert into users underscore tv, and then we need a username, and then password. Okay, now the values will be, so I'm using a parameterized query, so at uname comma at upass, and then I'll pass in the connection as well, so con. Okay, all right, now what I'll do is that I'll say that with cmd dot parameters, okay, dot parameters, and then I'll hit enter. I'll say dot add with value. I'll open this, I'll say uname, and then we'll come back to this. Okay, dot add with value, and then dot at upass, and let's go back to the form and then place a text box, which will be for the username and password. So I also need a label, so let me just go back, copy this label, and then just paste it. Now reduce the font size to 12 or 10, then will be okay. Alright, so this one will be username, okay, and then let me just copy and then paste this. Well, this is not coming, so let me just drag, so test box, and then I'll add it. So this one will be password. Alright, now let me just say use system password character for this text box here. So what it will do is that whatever password we enter will not be visible for us to see, so it is masked in a way. Let me just change this one now here to register. Okay, so let me rename this text box to txt username, and then this one is txt password. Okay, now let me just double click on this once again. So here I'll just say comma txt username dot text dot trim, so that will remove all the white spaces using the trim function. Then this one to be txt password dot text dot trim, like that. Then outside the with statement, I can say that I equals to cmd dot execute non-query. So I believe you know where this I is coming from. We defined it inside the model, so when you come here you can see this I here. So anywhere in the application I can make reference to this I. Okay, so I can say that I, so I'll say if I is greater than 0, okay, I greater than 0, I can say MSG box registered successfully. Then I'll say VB information right here. Then I'll say else MSG box could not register. I'll say VB critical. Okay, then finally I'll make sure I'll close the connection. Alright, so let's test this one out. Okay, so let me punch in perhaps my name, Ernest. That'll be my username, and then my password will be 1234, and then I'll add E to it. Then I'll hit on register. So you can see that we had a positive, or we have a positive message here. Let's go to the database and check whether it is true or not. So go back here, and then I'll just hit on browse once again, and then you can see the records are in here like that. So yes, we've been able to achieve our purpose for this tutorial. So you see that with few logics here, you've been able to implement a database functionality. Unlike the other approach I showed in my videos, you would have to be creating an instance of the connection every now and then, but this one you just have to test this boolean function. Based on the result that is returned, you can just continue and then implement the database functionalities here. Okay, so you can do same for select statement. This one is an insert statement. You can do likewise for select statement. Okay, so this is the end of this one here. We are going to continue to look at more interesting stuff in the next content to be uploaded. So if you haven't subscribed, kindly do that. Like this video, like I said, if it is worth watching. Okay, and I wish you happy learning. Until next time, be good and peace. Bye.